Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Your Fave Film Critic. This is episode 20 of Your Fave Film Critic, starring, hosted, produced, recorded by your favorite film critic, me, Dom Griffin. It's Thanksgiving right now as I'm recording this. I earnestly thought about doing a holiday skip week because I normally just record Thursday nights. I'm going to be at work tonight until 1 o'clock in the morning on Thanksgiving. But I'm like, you know what? I don't want to, we've been consistent. We've been putting this out, so we're going to do it. I'm going to record the episode anyway, because who cares? I will ask that you excuse if you're watching the video version. I'm recording during the daytime at a time of day I normally don't record, just because of how the sunlight hits. So I can literally see a bad shadow on my green screen I can't get rid of. It's going to look funny when I add the background and whatever. It's okay. Anyway, this is a bit of an odd week in the sense that I watched one thing only the entire week. So the what I watched section will just go deep into that one thing, and it'll get kind of spoilery. So if you haven't seen that thing, I'll note that you can just skip it. I don't want to ruin anything for anyone. But we're gonna start off talking about some new stuff like always, and I have a couple questions at the end. I will say that the main thing we're talking about in the news section is a pretty contentious topic. So if I get into it and it's something that makes you uncomfortable, it's not something you want to hear about on the podcast, I apologize. But I would feel weird not talking about it, so I'm just going to talk about it. And yeah, hopefully I don't piss anybody off, or if I do, I don't know, I'm sorry, maybe. So let's just get into it, right? All right, we're going to start with the news section. I have a couple of more light news topics, and then we'll get into the main thing. Thing one is I have been getting so much enjoyment over the last several days from Ridley Scott's press tour to promote Napoleon. And my relationship with Ridley Scott has changed a lot over the years. I used to think he was a decent director. I wasn't crazy about him. I always thought Tony was more talented. I was one of those shithead people when I was younger who used to joke about how the wrong brother died, which is a very mean and disgusting thing to think and say, considering their relationship and what it must have been like for Ridley to lose his brother and stuff. But that was dumb. But over recent years, I went in and filled in most of his filmography, and I still think Tony's the better director. But I like Ridley. I like that he's kind of all over the place, and I like that he does lots of different stuff. And when he's on, he's really on, and when he's off, it could still be interesting and charming. So I still have a video forthcoming about Napoleon, so that's still coming. So I'm not going to talk about the movie so much, but the press tour is so funny. He's just such a annoyed old man, and I'm positive that a lot of younger film fans and people who are not into this sort of irascible old auteur era or whatever think he's an asshole or a piece of shit or something. But he's just so entertaining. I don't know. I remember distinctly the first movie I was ever paid to review was Exodus: Gods and Kings, his super terrible movie about Moses and Ramses. It's basically just a really shitty live action version of The Prince of Egypt, which is a dope ass movie, and it fucking sucks. And I did not like the movie very much at all. There's stuff in it that's still good, even when Ridley has a movie that's kind of middling, there's a part of him that is always engaged. So it's in Exodus: Gods and Kings, the whole movie he seems why did you make this movie? You don't even seem like you care about the story. But he got to film the plagues, and you could tell he had fun filming the plague. So usually his movies will have a thing that he wanted to do, and then he had to do the other stuff around it. And that was almost 10 years ago. And I thought it sucked, and I really hated. He had a quote in his press tour for that about, people were it's kind of weird you have Joel Edgerton playing Ramses. It's kind of weird you have Christian Bale playing Moses. And he was just very pragmatic about it. Well, I don't think I could have gotten this movie made with Muhammad such and such or whoever. He was very dismissive, and I was like, dude, fuck you. And I still feel that way about that particular thing. But ever since that, every time he does his dickhead press tour, it's always fun. So far, he hasn't done anything similar to that, so I don't care. But him making fun of the French is funny to me. Him just being incredibly dismissive of the idea of historical accuracy for his movie about Napoleon is very funny to me. Him getting A24's name wrong and saying A23 is very funny to me. All of it is just very entertaining. Him sort of acting like, Martin Scorsese has been talking about, like how his time is running out and he doesn't feel like he did enough and stuff like that. And Ridley's just like, whatever. I've made 4 movies in the time it took him to make his last one. And I was sort of thinking like, I mean, the 4 movies together are not, I don't know, even like a 90% as good as Martin Scorsese's one movie that he made. But, I mean, everyone doesn't have to work in the same way, and he wants to crank out stuff, however the quality is. Like, I kind of respect it. He wants to stay busy. He likes working. He likes making movies, Very funny to me, the whole thing. I don't know. This isn't even like news. I just wanted to say, if you have any free time laying around, just so many funny Ridley Scott quotes out in the ether right now promoting a movie that I'm not even sure he's particularly proud of. It just tickled me. I don't know. Like, I wish I kind of had that level of not giving a shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm someone who is like very, very sensitive to how things I say are received and how people perceive me or understand me and stuff. So I sometimes maybe put a little bit too much work and thought into how I say things and what I say and how I say them. And every time I watch Ridley Scott just being like, fuck you, whatever, I'm just like, yeah, I wish I could be like that. I mean, I guess it's good that I'm not like that or whatever, but sometimes I'm like, that would be nice for like 1 month a year. I don't know which month I'd pick, but 1 month a year to just be like that, to just be like insufferably stubborn and just not listening to other people's shit, just being like, I don't care about that, fuck you. Nerd, go away, nerd. Like every interview is him being like, what are you, a nerd? I made a movie, fuck off. And I don't know, I'm jealous of that a little bit, you know what I mean? Like I gotta go fucking to work on Thanksgiving and talk to customers who are gonna be like, why are you here on Thanksgiving, motherfucker? Why are you here on Thanksgiving? And I don't know, in my mind, I wish I could just hire Ridley Scott to come by and like talk to people for me for a couple of hours. Like, I need to speak to the manager. And I just put Ridley in front of me. And Ridley's just like, what do you want? Go away. I'm like, thanks, Ridley. Thanks, Mr. Scott. I love Blade Runner. So nothing else to really say about that, honestly, but just Napoleon video, still coming soon. Ridley Scott, probably not going to get any kind of best director consideration this year, considering how crowded the field is. But if he does, it'd be funny just because I want to see him at that little Hollywood Reporter roundtable thing they do with all the directors. He entertains me so much. Second bit of news is on the fun side, I suppose. James Gunn has done some more casting announcements for Superman Legacy. He announced that Nicolas Hoult will be playing Lex Luthor, which is pretty cool casting, I think. And Skyler Gisondo, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. The guy from the cute dude from Licorice Pizza and Booksmart and stuff. He's playing Jimmy Olsen, which is like pitch perfect casting to me. Like, he's one of the few people I think they could get to make Jimmy feel like a real character and not like a joke. Like, Jimmy Olsen is one of those enduring comic book characters that I think most people just don't take seriously, so they don't know how to make him matter. I'm hoping that Gunn takes a little bit of inspiration from the way Grant Morrison wrote him in All-Star Superman and the way Matt Fraction wrote him in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, which is a really, really underrated comic. But I think that's pretty fun casting. And the Nick Hoult thing is interesting to me because, like, Nick Hoult has been, I feel like, he was Beast in a couple of X-Men movies, which was, I always thought was strange casting. But it's clear that Warner Brothers has wanted to get him in one of these fucking movies for a minute. Like, he was up for Batman, didn't get Batman. He wanted to play Superman in this. He didn't get picked for this. And I kept seeing people tweet like, a guy who wanted to be Superman and got rejected, getting to play Lex Luthor is kind of perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I think there might be like a built-in resentment that'll properly inform his performance. And I still don't know if it's going to be the kind of story where Lex is the main villain or if Lex is just like an important fixture. Because there are tons of good Superman stories where Lex isn't the main bad, but he's like just prominent because of his relationship to Superman and stuff. And I'm very curious to see how that goes. I think Jesse Eisenberg's Lex is pretty underrated in BVS, even though it's like very annoying and it's very all these different things. I feel like that was the right call for like I feel like a Lex for this era would be essentially like the guy who played Mark Zuckerberg. That's kind of perfect, you know. So it'll be interesting to see what is Nick going to be pulling from like Bitcoin Bros and stuff, or like what, you know what I mean? Like what's it going to be like? Is it going to be more like Elon Musk? I don't know. We'll see. But I think he's a pretty good actor, and I like him. I'm glad he got the job. I'm glad he finally gets to be in one of these movies, because Warner Bros. Is just going to keep being like, all right, you want to be Green Lantern? You want to be the Flash? We got to get you in here, buddy. So it's good that it's kind of happening. I still am a little bit concerned at the sheer number of people in Superman Legacy, and like I'm sure Gunn is cooking something that makes sense to have this many fucking characters introduced in this movie. But on paper, it does seem kind of like, God damn, dude, you got like 3 or 4 Justice League people, 3 Authority people. You got, I think there's a rumor that Michael Rooker might be playing General Sam Lane, Lois's dad. That's actually pretty good casting. Like it's going to be a lot. And I'm pretty sure, like I said, he's a smart guy. I think he knows what he's doing. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Still on track to come out next July, start shooting in a few months. Almost, I can't believe I'm yawning on the pod. I'm so sorry. Not been sleeping very well. But yeah, I'm just gonna get into the main thing that the news section is gonna be about. So headline is the Scream franchise is essentially dead to me, which is very rough because I like and love the Scream franchise. It's my probably arguably my favorite franchise ever, in the sense that like I would have followed the Scream movies into the dark. Do you know what I mean? Like they could have continued making Scream movies until the day I died, and no matter how bad they got, I would still give them a chance, because I'm just such a fan of the Ghostface iconography, the structure, the ideas, the tone. I love Scream. Okay, I love it. The other day, or yesterday, I don't actually know what day it is this week. Melissa Barrera, the star of the more recent Scream movies, so Scream 2.0, Scream 5, Scream 2022, whatever, and Scream 6 was fired from Scream 7, which was gearing up to shoot relatively soon with the strike over. And she was fired for, well, the official line from the head of Spyglass Entertainment, who I'd like to point out grew up in apartheid South Africa, it was that she was spewing anti-Semitism, and that she was pushing the harmful trope that Jewish people control the media. And the person who wrote the like Variety article about it implied heavily on Twitter before going private that there was more to this than that. Like she had been, other than like basically every other person reporting on this has been like, okay, well, Melissa has been very loud on social media, particularly Instagram, posting pro-Palestine information, which is, as far as I'm concerned, like the right thing to do with your voice, especially if that's something you feel strongly about. But the article sort of implied as though, like, well, offline, she was actually saying like explicitly fucked up anti-Semitic stuff. And I have a hard time believing that to be true. And maybe since then, while I'm recording this, more information has come out or something. But I really firmly believe that, like, if that's what it was, and she lost a job over it, and you guys were reporting on it, to me it seems like you would just say what those things were, or you would just give more background. And like when people were pressing the guy on Twitter, he was just like, "You just have to trust me." And I was like, "You're a fucking journalist. I'm not gonna have to trust you on some shit you didn't explicitly report on. Like you're just gonna be like, yeah, you trust me. It was really bad. It was really, really bad what she said." It's like, what was it? You can't talk about it. Fuck you. This isn't a situation where it's like when someone has difficulty reporting on like someone who was like victimized or something, and it's like, hey, that's this victim's place to speak up about, not mine, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. This is like, you say you have knowledge of her saying these things, but you won't say what these things are, just that they're really bad. That seems iffy to me, to say the least. But she got fired from Scream 7, and she also got let go from another movie she was going to start shooting soon that Matt Reeves is producing. And they immediately replaced her with Maria Baklava. I can't remember her name, and I didn't write it down. The lady from Borat 2, who I think is pretty talented, to be entirely honest. She was very good in Bodies. But I do feel like it's a very on the nose for someone to be fired from a movie for being too pro-Palestine and then to be replaced by someone who has worked very closely with Sacha Baron Cohen, who was like the polar opposite of that. I don't know. I think it's very whatever. I'm not trying to push new tropes. The thing I kind of want to get across about this is I haven't been talking on the pod about what's going on in Palestine at all. Because like it doesn't. You guys see the tone of the pod. I talk about like goofy, dumb shit and stuff, and sometimes I get impassioned about certain things. But I found that in the last several months, for obvious reasons, conversations, discourse, public discourse about what's going on in the Middle East has started to turn a tide, aided largely, I think, by a lot of younger people who are becoming informed and becoming radicalized about these things that they're learning about what's going on over there. And there's always been, in my entire lifetime anyway, this strong sense that's like, you can't really talk about this stuff unless you're a scholar. If you haven't read 6 to 7 books about the subject and you don't know the rich history and the complexity, then you're not allowed to form an opinion and you're not allowed to talk about it. And you just have to kind of trust the adults in the room who have learned and do know because they know better than you. And I never really, I don't want to say I just believed that line, but it's not something I ever like argued against that strongly or anything. And in recent months, I've just been thinking about how during like 2020 and like all the race protests and all the Black Lives Matter stuff, when that was going on, nobody smart anyway, was saying like, well, you can't have an opinion about what's going on with these police officers essentially getting away with killing innocent black people. Unless you know the entire history, if you can cite what happened with Jim Crow, you know what I mean? Like nobody smart again was telling people, you can't have an opinion about this. You need to go do research first. You need to go read several books before you're allowed to form an opinion. And I think on a very basic level, it's completely normal and acceptable and respectable to come to the conclusion that people in Palestine should not be getting bombed daily. In the pursuit of capturing and eliminating Hamas, because literal war crimes are happening to them right now, and a lot of it's being funded by our tax dollars. And I don't think it's wrong to speak out about that. I don't think it's wrong to be calling for a ceasefire from your representatives who, again, do have actually large say in how this goes. This is not the sort of thing where like stuff is going on in other countries and it's nothing to do with America. Like if American dollars, our literal dollars, are helping fund something, it's completely normal. And that people who live here are like, hey, that's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like there's all sorts of things that our government will not fund for us, our citizens, but they sure give a lot of money to Israel to defend itself. And clearly they're using those monies to do a lot more than defending themselves. Do you know what I mean? And like, it's obviously a topic that is difficult to talk about because it's hard to be able to articulate a sort of anti-Zionist stand publicly in a way that it will not be very easily bent or misconstrued as being anti-Semitic, right? I have like so many Jewish friends. I hate when people, like white people, talk about race issues and like, my black friends say this. So I apologize for falling into that fucking trope. But I have so many Jewish friends who are like anti-Zionists and who think what's going on is fucked up and who are loudly and proudly using their voice and their platforms and their everything to speak out against this stuff. So it is very weird anytime someone's like, oh, well, you just hate Jewish people. And I'm like, okay, all right. I don't really agree with that. It sounds kind of iffy that that's where you're going with this, but okay. And I had my own feelings about all this stuff anyway. It's something I've been talking with friends a lot about. I have not been like posting a bunch of stuff really, because like everyone I know already posts better and more informative infographics than me to begin with. And something about me is that I try very hard to find a healthy balance between staying informed and not being in constant despair. I don't think I personally have the conviction and the dedication to be as useful in like larger social movement things. I'm not someone that like, I don't go to a lot of protest. I don't do a lot of stuff. And I mean, I definitely ought to, but it's, I don't know, I guess I could call it a failing of mine. It's not something I'm like proud of or what have you. But I have a lot of friends who are very active in doing these things, and I'm so proud of them, and I love them, and I support them. And I guess I didn't start like actually talking about it, and it's very silly, and I hope no one sees this as silly, until this thing happened with Scream. And it's not because I like the Scream movie so much, it's just because it is clearly part of a larger, very disturbing, like McCarthy-esque campaign of people being silenced and punished for saying things publicly that are like not, it's like, again, it's very reductive to make this comparison, but it's like I would be equally enraged and frustrated and disheartened if actors who were speaking out and putting BLM in their profiles were getting dropped from movies. That would be disturbing. You know what I mean? Like if people were like, they're just being anti-white, they just hate white people. Do you know what I mean? Like that would be so fucking bad. We would obviously look at that and go, that's not good. You can't, that's not a good thing. That's not a good precedent to set. Susan Sarandon got dropped by her talent agency, UTA. And Susan, as many of you are aware, has spent most of her adult life. She's very left-leaning. She's very progressive. She has, championed a lot of controversial causes, I think, to sort of the more like center-leaning establishment of Hollywood. People regularly still fucking blame her for not voting for Hillary. Like her one vote was like the golden snitch of fucking electoral politics, and that's why Trump won or whatever, but she got dropped for what they were calling anti-Semitic comments. Now, I did read what she said, and I thought it was very poorly phrased, and I think that I can see why people would get angry about what she said. And I don't know that it was the best thing to say, but I don't personally perceive it as being anti-Semitic. I'm not Jewish, so again, maybe not my place to say that, but didn't really seem worth dropping someone from the agency when you consider how many people have been doing like the opposite and saying a lot of very foul, broadly Islamophobic things in the other direction of this debate, and like nothing's happened to them. Like Eli Roth, Amy Schumer, a lot of people are saying a lot of like just fucking nasty shit and sharing a lot of like gross fucking political cartoons and stuff. Nothing happened to them, nothing whatsoever. And that is what made me very uncomfortable about it, because it was just like, this is super fucking weird. Do you know what I mean? Like this is a huge thing that's happening. And I feel like anyone can look at it, the very basics of the situation, and come to the conclusion that like, this isn't okay. You know what I mean? Like, and it's weird that I feel like in any other context, we could look at it and go, this is clearly not okay. But it's covered in this shroud of, no, it's complex. You don't understand. There's so much deeperness to it. And it's like, I don't know, on a very basic level, I don't know what you're going to fucking tell me, or what book you're going to show me, or what fucking PowerPoint you're going to press play of in front of me. That's going to make me go, yeah, I guess you should keep bombing the hospitals and killing the children. Whatever. That's fine. I don't think it's a matter of who is informed and who is not informed, or people trying to gotcha other people about where they learn this stuff from, or like, oh, well, you learned this from TikTok. And it's like, there's a lot of young people who spend a lot of time on TikTok, and if this is where they're discovering things, or many of them are seeing on the boots first accounts, lived experience from people who live over there, we're going to discount that because you didn't follow it up by doing extra research and citing your sources and shit. Like, this isn't a research paper. This is just about having basic human decency in the things that you see happen publicly. I don't, the same way I didn't think you needed to read White Fragility to have a viewpoint on the George Floyd protests and stuff, so the whole thing is just very gross to me. And I think this is something that's been bothering me, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, but I didn't really have anything to say about it beyond like, this sucks. This is fucked up. America should not be co-signing this and helping and aiding it to happen and supporting it. But as a country, we do that a lot, all the time, and do bad things, ourselves. So it shouldn't be that surprising. It's Thanksgiving. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we're all in theory celebrating a holiday, where we're just, sort of like celebrating taking over a person's land and calling it our own and stuff. So it shouldn't be that much of a shock, but I do understand, and I could be, one of the reasons I guess I don't talk about things that are as controversial on the podcast specifically is that my natural communication style in casual conversation is I have a tendency to be quite flippant. If I'm incensed by something, if something bothers me or I feel strongly about something, I'm not as careful with my words. I will just fly off the handle and say certain stuff. And I want to not sound that way on this, where way more people are listening and it could be misconstrued, or it's like someone that doesn't know you personally, doesn't, in a casual conversation with people, you can say an opinion or voice something and you don't have to voice it carefully because like this person knows you and they know your other beliefs, and there's no real room for misinterpretation. Whereas anything you say publicly on the internet, on a recorded platform, is not that way. People are going to listen to it in theory. Not that many people listen to this podcast, but people will listen to it in theory and not know you. I mean, I discovered this because it happens in my reviews all the time. Someone will watch one video of mine and no other videos and take one thing I said out of context and assume a bunch of other things about me that are not true. But it's like, what am I going to do? Tell that person like, no, you got to go back, watch my entire channel, dude. You got to like learn all the Dom lore. You wouldn't feel that way if you knew more about me. Because that's a weird thing to ask of people, So I think it's more important that me, are more careful with how I say things. And that's another thing. Like, sorry, I got a little tangent here, but like I say, I try to find a strong balance between staying informed, but not getting like soul crushingly frustrated. Like I suffer from depression pretty harshly and have my entire life. So it's definitely always a battle for me to like be able to be like functional and like not bogged down by negative thoughts and feelings and stuff. So I try not to dwell too much about larger things that are larger than myself for somewhat selfish reasons. Cause it's just like, bro, I can't process that today. Like not to say I don't care. It's not important to me, but it's just kind of like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like I don't know how I'm going to get out of bed right now. Like I got to figure out how to put pants on today. So like, I'll kind of get to that later. And as a result, sometimes I am very voracious and I read and consume and watch a lot of news and different stuff from different sources and I read a lot of think pieces. And then I go through periods where like that is too much for me and I just don't. And I just sort of like trickle things through my friends who are better at staying informed. As a result, I don't want to be in a position where like I am publicly espousing something and I got to fucking get a DM from someone who wants to start sending me articles from Vox I didn't read or something, be like, actually, did you see this? Did they fact check this? They fixed that. And it's just like, I'm not a fucking journalist in that degree. I do not want to continue having to like go back and forth with everyone over something that I said. Which is why I'm trying to just stick to the very basic, very broad concept that I think that the Palestinians who are living in an open air prison, having death rained upon them on a regular basis, shouldn't have that happening to them. Broadly, whatever else you want to say about a two-state solution or the history or the legitimacy of Israel, all these other things, all these other complex, controversial, difficult things to parse and unpack or whatever, on a very basic level, I just want to say that I'm very committed to the idea that maybe what's happening to them shouldn't be happening. And the where, what, why, how of it all, I don't care as much as just this is clearly bad. Straight up, this is bad. This isn't like up for debate to me. It's clearly being debated all over the motherfucking world, but I know, and it's something that every poll that comes out shows that a majority of Americans seem to agree, but alas, now we're firing people from movies for it. And it is unfortunate to me because like on Twitter, for instance, I saw people showing a lot of support for Melissa, which I think was great. I'm not even like a huge fan of hers. I didn't even like her that much of the fucking 2 movies she was in, to be honest. She seems nice. I don't know. A friend of mine who works in the industry talked about working with her on something and saying she was very kind. And it's more to me the idea that like some people are defending her, obviously, and then some people are defending her in like the wrong way, which is like, I've seen multiple people share that news being like, Kanye was right. And I'm like, no, like, no, that's not, like now it's like, this is what I mean. This is like why you can't talk about these things, because then people go, I guess Kanye was right. The Jews are awful. And it's like, you're unspeakably dumb. That is not where we're going with this. This is not vindication for Kanye West. I'm very sorry. He was broadly and horridly wrong. But, that's what happens. It's a thing that people don't want to know about or whatever. And like, I guess, it's like the correct, I don't know about correct, but the sort of like right response to this is sort of like Melissa Barrera posting an Instagram story talking about how Western media tends to not focus or center like the Palestinian perspective and the way they frame this ongoing narrative. I don't think that is the same as saying Jews control the media, which is like, if you read the post that she posted, I can see how someone would pull that out of it, but that is not how it read to me. And I sort of feel like people are kind of grasping at straws there, but it is also not great or ideal that other people would share that and be like, well, they're just proving her right, which is like, no, it's not what she was not. And as far as I'm aware, and maybe someone will be in the comments being like, no, I actually have here this signed affidavit about how she actually does hate Jewish people and does listen to Donda 10 times a day because she hates whatever. I don't think that she was saying that Jews run everything or something. I just firmly don't believe that. With most things, I'm open to being proven wrong, but it seems really fucking fucked up. And then Jenna Ortega, the other star, the more famous star from the newer Scream films, has dropped out of the movie. Now, there's conflicting information because they're saying that she was already talking about dropping out pre the strike for scheduling conflict reasons. Now they're saying she's dropping out because of scheduling conflict reasons. But the fact that the news wasn't finalized until the day after Melissa was fired, and the fact that they're saying she can't make it work with her schedule when the movie has no schedule because they fired the lead and the whole movie has to be rewritten from scratch. Like, there is no timetable. Who knows? Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, that kind of seems like kind of saving face or something, or they don't want to make it look like they lost her too. This is a franchise that's already been fucking up. They didn't have Neve Campbell in Scream 6 because they didn't want to pay her what she said she was worth, which is fucked up because she's like the star of the franchise. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of shitty. And the thing that kind of disappointed me, I don't want to say the most, but it definitely really got to me, is Christopher Landon is writing, or was not writing, he was directing Scream 7. You guys know him from, he directed Happy Death Day, Happy Death Day to You, Freaky, We Have a Ghost on Netflix, which I talked about a few episodes ago. I think he's a pretty cool filmmaker. I like his stuff. I was very much looking forward to seeing what he would do with the Scream franchise because it felt very up his alley. He posted like a tweet that got deleted right afterwards, I guess, because people were rightly pointing out how fucking stupid he looked. And the tweet was essentially him saying like, this wasn't my decision. Everything is awful. Please stop yelling, heartbreak emoji. And it was just like, you're a grown fucking man. This is the best statement you could come up with. And pretty much everybody I know has been like, okay, well, one, we're not going to watch whatever that movie turns out to be, no matter what they do. Like, with that movie, this franchise at this point is dead to us. And second of all, everyone else should just walk too. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's like, everyone else should walk. So I am of the mind that Jenna Ortega chose to walk. I do think that the fact that she didn't like publicly make a statement saying that's why she walked, maybe people should not be giving her a bunch of like kudos for it, because we don't know, the fact that she's not like really signing her name to it in that way. Like, I don't know. But the fact that like, here's the thing that got me the most about Landon, right? Is someone pulled up a tweet from, in previous episodes, I talked about the Coyote versus Acme stuff where Warner Brothers wasn't going to release it. Now they're going to sell it to someone to have them release it, et cetera, et cetera. But that couple of days where they thought it was shelved and it was this big, great injustice, Christopher Landon was someone who tweeted about it and was like, every filmmaker should like, just like walk off of whatever they're working on with Warner Brothers or refuse to work with Warner Brothers. How can we support them? They're doing this to our art. And this man was full of fucking belly fire for that. But now the star of his movie gets fired for being publicly pro-Palestine. And he's just like, everyone stop. Stop yelling. I didn't do this. Stop it. It's like, bro, you were ready to go to fucking war over Coyote versus Acme. And this to you is like, look, that didn't have anything to do with this. I just want to make my little movie. I'm just like, dude, you're a fucking coward. I tried to post something on Instagram calling him a coward, and Instagram was like, someone else used a similar thing and we reported them, so you might want to use a different word. I'm like, coward is hate speech now? A coward is like a slur? So it's extremely disappointing is really what it boils down to. It's just fucking disappointing. that this is happening, and that so many people seem fine with it. I mean, not that many people, to be honest. I've seen a lot of people who are not fine with it, but I don't know, man. It fucking sucks. That's really all I kind of want to get across. Is it fucking sucks. And to be clear, this doesn't suck because I was looking forward to Scream 7. This sucks because it's happening to enough people very quickly that it might spread more heavily. And the fact that the fact that more people are not like, yo, stop it, this is not cool, is very disturbing to me. Like, I don't remember her name, but there was an agent who was like Tom Cruise's agent, who was they'd taken her role as like head of the motion picture division at her agency, and then they quietly were like, well, she can keep her talent, but like she's not gonna have like a prominent role with the agency anymore. And I think it came out that Tom Cruise basically stopped them from firing her, which is insane considering that like Tom Cruise never takes like a political stance if he can avoid it. His entire thing is just being as like, fucking please don't be controversial at all. I gotta make these people forget about the time I jumped on the couch and all the Scientology stuff. So I thought that was kind of, I mean, I don't know if that means that Tom supports that woman's beliefs, or if Tom just really likes his agent and is just like, I don't know, man, I don't want to get a new agent at this point in the game. You know, I don't know what the situation is there, but you would hope that you would see more of that, more of people being, you know, showing solidarity and supporting people who are being punished for possessing opinions. And like, I know that every time like a racist person or someone who does bad things gets like quote unquote canceled, it's like, look at me being punished for having an opinion. It's like, well, yeah, but your opinion's also like hateful and terrible. I just don't think that Free Palestine is a hateful and terrible position to have. I don't know. Like, I feel like I've yet to hear anyone put forth an argument in defense of what Israel is doing that also wrestles with, but hey, they're killing children and innocent people. How do you feel about that? Every time I've seen someone be pro what they're doing, they just like sidestep that. Like, well, that would, but you're not condemning Hamas. And it's like, okay, I'm literally just asking you to explain to me how you are personally compartmentalizing the fact that children are being fucking killed. I remember a whole lot of you, because I mean, to be honest, most of the people I see who are pro this are also, you know, like liberals. It's not like I have a bunch of like right-wing friends or something. I find it strange how many of them were like, you can't vote for Bernie in the primaries. What about the kids in cages? So who's going to save them? Like, you guys don't give a shit about these fucking kids. They're not in cages. They're in an open air prison getting murdered. You don't care about that? That doesn't bother you? It's totally cool. I don't know. A lot of hypocrisy abound. Scream's dead. Franchise is over. I don't know. I know that now they're going to want to pay Nev whatever she wants, but I hope she doesn't do it. I hope she says, go fuck yourself. Just Dunsky. I don't know. I think it's really terrible. And I really hope this doesn't turn into a larger wave of like Red Scare-esque tactics against people just voicing basic humanitarian perspectives. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of the things that people are sharing, that people are saying is like radical extremist content, is often just quotes from like, you know, you were always saying you want to hear from, you don't know anything because you're not a scholar. A lot of these quotes are from fucking scholars. A lot of them are from people who made their entire life studying this stuff. And I don't know, man, it's just crazy. And you know, if listening to stuff like this is not your cup of tea, I apologize for spending this much time on the pod for it. But I just wanted to talk about it because I didn't know how not to. And obviously I would prefer to be someone who could talk more at length about this sort of thing in a more effective manner. But at the very least, I'm being honest, and that's important to me. So I don't think I have anything else to say about it. If anyone has any thoughts or comments, you can do that in the comments below and I'll talk. But I would really hope that no one just pops into my shit and just starts calling me names or misconstruing things that I said. I will probably just like block you or whatever. I don't even want to deal with it. But yeah, let's move on to the one thing I watched this week. So I didn't watch any new movies this week. I just didn't. I don't know. I had some things I kind of meant to watch and I just didn't watch anything. The one thing I did this week was I binged all of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the 8-episode anime adaptation of Brian Lee O'Malley's graphic novel series, Scott Pilgrim, which 6 volumes, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Scott Pilgrim and the Infinite Sadness, Scott Pilgrim, whatever the fourth one's called, Scott Pilgrim versus the Universe is the fifth one, and then I think the sixth one is Scott Pilgrim's Finest Hour. I should have written these all down. I don't remember, but so a little background with me in this franchise. I loved the Scott Pilgrim comics as they originally came out. I read Versus the World first, which is the second volume, and then I went back and got the first one, and then the third one had just come out, so then I read those three, and then every time a new one came out, I would read the new one. I was very excited when the movie was announced, and I liked the movie quite a bit, but the movie was finished before the graphic novels were, so the movies kind of diverged from the books. And in a way, even though the movie was not a hit, okay, you gotta understand something. When this movie came out, right, we were all so stoked. People who liked the books. It was Edgar Wright directing. I had read a draft of the script that Michael Bacall had written. I thought was pretty good, and the cast was really, everything about it. This seems like it was gonna be perfect. They had I can't remember his name. They had that one guy from Sloan as the music supervisor. They had a really good soundtrack. Everything about the movie seemed like it was gonna be great. And I remember seeing an opening night in at midnight or whatever, and having a really, really good crowd of people who were all diehard fans. And in that theater, it felt like this movie was going to be humongous. And then it wasn't, obviously. And I've always felt like Scott Pilgrim is adjacent to the Wachowski, Speed Racer, and a couple of other movies of that era that I feel like down the line, you'll be able to look back at that movie and this is very of its time and very good and very ahead of its time and different stuff. How can something be of its time and ahead of its time at the same time? I don't know, but that's how I feel about it. And what's interesting to me is that because of the movie is what most people consider to be the main text of the Scott Pilgrim brand or world or whatever. So a lot of criticisms that I find that people have of Scott Pilgrim come from the movie, and not having read the comics and the movie and knowing the differences between the two and why there are differences, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes the criticisms would just get kind of annoying, especially as younger people would discover it. Because something that comes up a lot in modern media criticism is people criticizing a character being bad or something, or being morally not perfect or whatever, as being a failing of the text, even if often the text is about that failing. And I've seen people be I hate Scott Pilgrim because Scott's this, and this. It's if you read the comics, one of the key things, people are always surprised to find out that a key plot point is that Scott begins the book as a 23-year-old dating a 17-year-old. And I don't know, the movie kind of glosses over it a little bit because of the way the movie is constructed. The movie is condensing 6 graphic novels, 2 of which were not published at the time, into a 2-hour movie. So yeah, a lot of nuance gets fucking left on the ground, obviously. But I feel at no point in the comics was that something that was it's treated, many things in the comics of Scott Pilgrim are treated kind of not a big deal because it's from Scott's perspective. And then as the books progress and you find out more about these characters and it gets a little more richer in detail, then it's as Scott comes to realize how shitty he is, he's aware of these things. You know what I mean? It's not they're glossing over it. It's this character is glossing over, this person is glossing over his own failings, as many people do in real life. So I always hated some of the critiques of Scott Pilgrim were critiques of the adaptation of the movie. And I felt, and to be fair, I've not gone back and reread the original graphic novels, even though I probably should at some point. I like them quite a bit. But I've always felt people were the movie, these things are issues with it. And it's well, yeah, it's pretty condensed, So I wasn't really looking forward to the anime at all, and I can't believe I'm yawning a second fucking time on the pod. I'm very sorry. I was not looking forward to it I desperately needed to see it or something like that. It's more I was curious because I'd seen a couple of reviews that I read maybe the first paragraph of and then stopped that were saying there's a big twist and it's not the kind of adaptation you expect. And I was okay, well, I'm curious. And so I ended up binging the whole thing. Secret about me, I talk all the time about not watching a lot of television, not liking a lot of television. Usually a show has to be elite level for me to actually watch it religiously. Otherwise, I'm just I'll get around to it. I never do. but they made every episode of Scott Pilgrim like a half an hour, so that was very easy for me to binge 8 episodes. It's like, not hard. But I should say right here, this spot right now, I'm about to spoil the show. So if you haven't seen the show yet, you don't want to be spoiled. Just skip ahead to the Q&A section, because this is all I'm going to talk about for this section, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to spoil the show. I'm going to do it. All right, I'm going to do it. It's 8 episodes. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. The entire first episode is a cartoonishly one-to-one adaptation of how the comics start out, and very much like the beginning of the movie is too. It's just like, all right, I'm seeing Scott Pilgrim. I guess it's just going to be, since it's 8 episodes, there's more room to explore the books. Like, it'll probably be a more faithful adaptation than the movie. That's exciting. And everything about the Scott Pilgrim story stays the same up until the end of the first episode. So it builds all the way up to Sex Bob-omb's performance that Matthew Patel, the first evil X, interrupts. And then Scott and Matthew fight. Except in this fight, Matthew Patel kills Scott. Scott dies at the end of the pilot. And in the next episode, it basically follows Ramona as the main character, who's like trying to figure out what happened to Scott. And by taking Scott out of the Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, by taking him out of the core, it creates all this space for all of the supporting characters to behave differently and go in different directions, and becomes almost a brand new story. But very quickly, Ramona learns that Scott is not dead, that he's been kidnapped. Like, that in the fight, someone used a vegan portal to pull him out of the fight to make it look like he'd been killed. So she doesn't know where he is. So it becomes a mystery every episode of her trying to figure out who kidnapped Scott. Because this is a guy she just met, that she really liked, and she thought something was going to happen with, and now she wants to try to save him. Especially because she feels like it might be her fault, because it might be related to the evil X's. So instead of it being Scott fighting all of Ramona's evil X's, it's Ramona going back and getting some measure of closure with all of her evil X's. And in some ways, the story seems designed to kind of show that Scott and Ramona were more alike than not, and that Ramona herself had a lot of failings, and maybe that's why they connected the way they did. And, it doesn't go in the same order and stuff, but like, they do a lot of really fun things. Basically, it's like, when you take out Scott from the thing, one of the things they do like in the middle of the show that I think is probably my favorite part is young Neil wakes up with like a screenplay that for the Scott Pilgrim movie, basically, and he gets it made. He gets it made, and it's essentially they're making a movie. And everyone's like, you guys are making a movie about what would happen if Scott had won the fight? And the movie they're making is just Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So like, Envy Adams is playing Ramona. Lucas Lee is playing Scott. Wallace gets to play himself somehow. And throughout this process, all these characters, you get to see different sides of them. So you get to see more about Lucas Lee. And then Lucas ends up becoming like friends with Gideon. Like, Gideon basically in the second episode loses the entire league and his fortune to Matthew Patel, who feels stronger and more confident because he thinks he beat Scott Pilgrim. So he beats Gideon, and then Gideon turns into his nerdy high school self, Gordon Goose, who Julie takes back into her house. So he's like this loser living in Julie's house. And then Lucas Lee and him end up hanging out. And then like Todd ends up cheating on Envy with Wallace, and like it becomes obsessed with Wallace. It's just like Knives joins the band and turns out to be a far better musician than Scott was. So the band gets like genuinely good. They do all this really fun stuff. It's just like, it's like a brand new thing. And ultimately the big reveal is that Scott was taken out of the story by a future version of himself, voiced by Will Forte, an older Scott who takes him to the future. Because in the future he's been divorced from Ramona, and he misunderstood some advice to say like he should go back and never date her to fix his life. And I do think the show doesn't explore enough of the old Scott stuff as I would have liked. It's kind of given short shrift, and like he's just kind of turned into like the big bad of the show in a kind of a weird way that's entertaining. But I remember thinking like they could have done more with this. And basically it's like all the Scott Pilgrim stuff happened, but this time travel bit creates a new timeline that is the new show. So it doesn't like invalidate the source material. It like adds on to it in, I think, a pretty cool way that allows for like critique of the original show and to make the show more queer the way the comic was and the movie was. In a lot of ways, like I still like the Scott Pilgrim movie for what it is, it's its own thing, but this feels more the way the comic felt, even if it's not accurate one-to-one because of the plot changes. I've already seen a lot of weird people being like, why are they trying to make Scott Pilgrim woke? And it's like, how the fuck did you ever think that this was for you? This show's got like the fucking original blue-haired barista girl. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird that you thought this was cool, or you thought that this was not cool with that or something. But the show is really well done. The animation's, like, I'm not a big anime guy anymore at all, but the animation's good. The fights are good. Anamaguchi has some new songs for it. The Sex Bomb songs feel more the way I assumed they would when I was reading the comic versus the way they were in the movie. The entire cast of the movie comes back to do voice work. So like Chris Evans, Brie Larson, Brandon Routh, all those people come back and they all do a really good job. Kieran Culkin, I feel like, takes a little bit to get as good as Wallace as he was in the movie. But I feel like everybody else gets that this is different than the movie and that it's animated and voice acting is different than regular acting. Michael Cera in particular, really, I thought was a lot better in this than he was in the movie, even though he has technically less to do. And it's really fun, man. Like, if you have a few hours to lay around, like, it's fun to binge. I mean, I guess you could watch it piece by piece like normal people do, but I think you should just binge it and get it over with. It also ends in such a way where, like, they can keep going. They can do, like, a new season. Like, it ends with a very interesting status quo that you can continue exploring for the future and find other stuff to do. And I thought that was exciting. It kind of felt a little bit like the best parts of Buffy, if that makes sense. Like the way like the status quo on Buffy could change from season to season and characters would be different, their relationships would be different, but it always felt honest. Like it kind of felt like that a little bit. And I just liked it quite a lot, man. I think it's really, really good. I'm excited for Brian Lee O'Malley and Ben David Grabinski, I think, to kind of get this really cool platform to explore this beloved. I mean, the book's like very old at this point, you know what I mean? So like there's enough time has passed and Brian Lee O'Malley's older and there's a lot to do to make it interesting and new again. So I think it's pretty fun. If you see anybody complaining about the fact that the big twists got going away, just ignore them. They're fucking stupid. Fuck them. I think we have enough time for a couple of questions because I have to get ready for work soon. Blah, blah, blah. I hate it. All right, first question. Susan asks, question for the pod. What trailer have you seen that sucked, and then when you saw the movie, you actually liked it? And then conversely, what trailer excited you about a movie, and then when you saw the movie, it totally sucked? I realize the second question could be a lot of movies. So I don't have a trailer where like I didn't think it was going to be good, and then it was really good. Usually the movies that surprised me did not have bad trailers. They had like brief, uninformative ones. Some movies just have very like lame marketing that doesn't like want to tell you much about the movie because they don't know how to sell it. And then you see the movie and you're like, why didn't they tell me it was this? I would have liked it. That happens like quite a bit actually. This year in particular, I want to say that like I talked about it a little bit like with Poor Things, Napoleon, like a few movies this year have trailers that are just fucking outright lies. And I don't know. Last year I was complaining about at work that some of the movies we had were good movies, but the marketing was not doing a good job of selling it to people who weren't already aware of it. Like that's been a real problem, is the way the attention economy is these days. Getting people to come to the movies is not easy. You have to sell them stuff, and doing it is not, it's hard. It's an art form in and of itself. So I can't actually think of anything where like I saw a bad trailer. Like typically if a trailer fucking sucks, the movie is not going to be great. It might be better than the shitty trailer, but it's usually not like actually good. Now, if a trailer is like bland or uninformative, sometimes that can mean it's a really good movie and they just didn't know how to market it. But I can't think of an actual good example of that. What is far more frequent, obviously, is that you'll see a trailer and you're like, that looks fun, that could be really good, and then you just get burned. My favorite example actually is not, this is a movie I didn't like. I ended up liking it later. Like later I ended up really liking it. But Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo remake, that trailer is like one of the best trailers like ever in my mind. It's like such a good trailer. Sometimes I just rewatch it for no reason. And I remember the time thinking like, this is a game changer. Like Fincher is going to crack the code and he's going to make like an R-rated franchise. Like this is going to be a franchise. They make multiple movies and people are going to be excited to see it, but it's going to be for grown-ups. And it's funny that I was even excited for that at a time where franchises and IP and stuff hadn't like fully become what it is now. It hadn't fully taken over Hollywood to this degree. But at the time, it seemed really cool. The trailer was rad and everything was like awesome. And I never read the books, but I'd seen the original movie and I wasn't a big fan. It was very popular at my theater that I worked at the time, and I just always thought it was stupid. But I liked the movie enough, but it felt like a big letdown. I was like, this didn't seem as special and cool as the trailer made it seem. But then I rewatched it a few times over the years, and now I like it quite a bit, and I wish he'd gotten to make a sequel. But yeah, I think those are my examples. Thanks, Susan. That's a good question. I love trailers, man. I love movie trailers. If you're gonna go to the movies, I do not like missing the trailers. Even if it's like trailers I've seen, I just like seeing them on the big screen. And then a question from Kyle. Hi, Kyle. Question for the next episode. Outside of seasonal, holiday-specific watches, have you had or do you have any movie-specific traditions? Maybe not the best example, but I have started lining up my first watch of the year on January 1st to be something that, to the best of my assessment, is going to be an absolute 5-star watch for me. I also try and pack in as many watches as I can on January 1st to start the year on the right foot. And since I'm a slave to Letterboxd, I always try to curate my first 10 watches by theme, director, or something like that to make that first population of stats look really cool. What's very funny about this question is that I am actually very similar, and I'm pretty sure I got it from Kyle. So I'm gonna open up my diary, and I'm pretty sure that the last couple of years I've done basically this. So let's scroll. Let's just go to January 2023. I'm big about not just starting my year a certain way, but ending it a certain way too. So like, actually, that's not true. So like, okay, something I do a little bit is like by mid-December, closer to Christmas, I'll have a bunch of Christmas movies I watch, obviously. And then I'll kind of look at my Letterboxd stats. And if there's like a director whose movies I watched a lot that year, but I don't want him to end up being my like most watched director, I'll go see who number 2 is and then go fill in the blanks kind of. Or like there's an actor who's like close to being my most watched actor. I kind of want to cement that. So at the end of last year, I watched a bunch of like legal thrillers, and then leading into Christmas, I watched Don't Open Till Christmas, LA Confidential, The Silent Partner, In Bruges, Lethal Weapon, and Nice Guys. Then I watched Lord of War, and then that led me to watch Zeros and Ones. I don't know how the leap in my mind did that. And then I watched Rabid Dogs and Hercules in the Haunted World because I was kind of still on a Mario Bava kick. Then I watched After Yang, which I'm really glad I did. It's a really beautiful movie. I rewatched Decision to Leave. I love Decision to Leave so much, and I wanted to rewatch it to kind of end my year the right way. And then I ended it watching True Lies because I'd never seen it. It's the only Cameron movie I'd never seen. And then I started my year watching Strange Days, which Cameron kind of worked on both those movies at the same time, even though the later movie obviously was directed by Catherine Bigelow. And then I rewatched Megan a few days later. And then I think I'm going to stick to this is a handful of favorites that I really like. I like revisiting. And I revisit Michael Mann's Miami Vice very often. I did this at the beginning of the year on January 5th. I might make that my first movie of the year next year, I think. I think I might start revisiting Tenet every year the same way, probably back to back with Miami Vice. That feels like a new tradition for me. I might find a way to squeeze like Popstar in. Popstar Never Stopping is one of my favorite movies, and I like to watch that regularly, but I always try to wait for the part of the year where I'm so sad or like unhappy or frustrated or stressed that I need this movie like medicine. So that might not be a beginning of the year thing, but it's definitely like a tradition. Other traditions, I mean, like obviously for like Halloween, like watch all the horror movies and stuff. But yeah, so I guess and I think I might have gotten this from you, dude. I'm really big onto like ending and starting the year kind of. Okay, like let's go back to the end of 2021. I had COVID, and I rewatched the entire Matrix series, and I rewatched Django Unchained on Christmas. I don't remember why. And then I filled in all the other Wachowski movies that I'd already seen, but just rewatched them. And then that led to me rewatching The Man of Tai Chi, the Keanu Reeves movie. And then I watched Never Stopping on New Year's Eve because I had COVID and I wanted to die and I really needed it. And then I ended my year with Heat. And then I started my year with Miami Vice. So I watched Heat, and I made it so that like Heat ended kind of not like at the ball drop, but like roughly the ball drop. And then I started like right after the ball drop, Miami Vice. And then I watched Public Enemies, Black Hat, Collateral. So yeah, I actually did do a man thing. I watched Black Hat, Collateral, Last of the Mohicans, Thief. And then I did a little brief thing where I just watched movies where Don Johnson was like hot. So I watched like Dead Bang and The Hot Spot. And then I kind of trailed off. I used to try to do that. I tried to make January, like I'd go hard with watches so I could kind of start with some good momentum. But what usually happens to me is I'm always very hard in November and December, and then I'm burned out at the beginning of January. So I have like a good couple of days, and then I just fizzle out. So, but I think I'm gonna stick to that Miami Vice tenant thing. I think that something about that feels really special to me. But yeah, thank you, Kyle. It's a good question. So that's the episode. Thank you guys all for listening. If you are watching the YouTube version of this, you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, please subscribe, hit the little bell button thing so you get notifications whenever I put out new videos. If you have anything to say or comment, that's what the comments are for. And if you have questions for future episodes, you can put those in the comments below. You can email me, armchairauteur@gmail.com. You can @ me on Twitter, or Blue Sky, which I never use, or IG, or whatever. I'm all over the internet. Come at me with questions. I love it. And if you're listening to this on wherever platforms you listen to, please give a rating or like a review or follow me, subscribe to me, whatever. I want to say that one of my happiest things about this year is doing this pod, the fact that you guys like it, and the fact that it's growing slowly but surely. Something I'm really proud of, and I really enjoy doing, even today on Thanksgiving. So thank you guys for listening. I hope everyone's doing well. We'll talk soon. All right, we'll talk soon.